Hey everybody, happy Monday. And as I said, I want to do one more show tunes before we move into Christmas stuff. And I thought this one was pretty funny because I'm going to show Catwoman as well as it being an homage to those terrifying live action Cats trailers that are out right now. So we hadn't done Cats as a show tune yet. So let's do it now. Here we are. Before we start the Christmas season, we're going to do one more Show Tunes Patreon song. Ready? Money is a thing I need more of, so support me on Patreon. You will do a good thing. With your funding, I can keep making these videos. And on Twitch, I'll keep playing. Patreon.com/LeannaK. All right. Now, since it is December, and that means ho-ho time, make that dirty if you want. People said maybe you should do Christmas carols, but that on Twitch last week. And for people who don't know what I'm on Twitch, it's usually Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's been wonky lately, but the best thing to do is follow me on Twitter. I always post on Twitter, or subscribe to my Twitch channel at Red Leanna K. On Twitch last week, some people suggested I do a 12 days of Christmas thing for Patreon. So add a different thing every day, or I can keep doing just random Christmas carols. I'm torn. So I'm going to let you guys decide. Let me know what you think. And I'll decide based on your feedback. I don't know how to do. I wish YouTube let you do polls. Can YouTube let you do polls? I don't know. I know Twitter can. Don't about YouTube. Gonna sneeze. Oh boy. Okay. So moving on to today's video. I took about a week and a half long Twitter break where I wasn't checking anything. I was just posting things on TweetDeck and leaving it alone because it was just, couldn't deal with the political screaming for a while, needed a break. And I came back to this video. I don't know who made it. Maybe I should check which YouTube channel it is. It's a YouTube channel, Snowshoe. So SN0WSH00. Snowshoe. Where they have taken Arkham Knight and swapped the Batman motion capture for the Catwoman motion capture. It's a much longer clip. It's like a 10-minute clip, but they focused on the last bit of it. It's a cutscene between Batman and Catwoman. Things happened. It basically, well, I'll let you take a look at it, okay? You can judge for yourself what you think of this. Personally, not to bias the jury, but I freaking love this. I find this so entertaining. I will tell you why. Here we go. All right, so hopefully the sound will work okay on this. Yes, here we go. And here we go. Julie Newmar.
Fresh air, freedom, and darkness. Perfect.
Got a little Ruby Rose on Batwoman thing going on with Catwoman
How
there.
should we celebrate? I know a couple of poor, defenseless museums. But then again, I also know a couple of hotels.
Yes, folks.
Tonight's not over yet. There's more work to be done.
The Batmobile,
Of course there is.
has entered
You
the
do
drag
know
race.
How to kill the mood. Do you ever take the night off? Do you ever take the suit off?
Not on nights like this, Selena. It's what I do.
Fine. I guess I'll hit an art gallery or two while the big bad bat's distracted.
You're not going to thank me?
Why? It's what you do.
That ass. I like how they got rid of the cape. So Batman finally has no strategic butt covering. So there we go. That's the clip that basically made the rounds. And there was much... Oh... How do I describe the response? Well, it was things like this. It was, here we go. It was people like Kyle Orland. It's cut off. I'll switch this. Sorry. Doing things on the fly. There we go. People like Kyle Orland, who writes for Ars Technica. When someone asks you what the male gaze is, just show them this. which makes absolutely no sense because this video is sort of, at the very least, opposing the male gaze, and then he plugs his book using a gendered binary. And then, people totally missed the point. This is only one of the things. I only singled him out because it was the clearest, and the book plug I thought was just wow. But I really think it's people like Kyle Orland who missed the point, because Catwoman is a bad example of the male gaze idea. If there's a good example of the male gaze, that's up for debate. I personally thought the male gaze was a polemic essay back in the day. Laura Mulvey wrote an essay called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. And she never intended the concept to hold up to scientific rigor. And it's just kind of caught fire like Batman was in that clip. The thing about the male gaze is in the 1990s, Judith Butler came out with, I'm blanking on the name of the book, but a gender performance. And that's a shining example of gender performance right there. And when I look at the clip, I think it just shows that feminine gender performance is a lot more fun. Okay? Like, let's take a look at that again from that lens. Okay? How much more fun? Like, you can practically go, I enjoy being a girl. You know, like, it just shows that, well, first of all, it's Batman. So the villains always have more fun in Batman. But I'm going to mute it so you can just see the visuals here. And look at how much more fun Batman is having than Catwoman. Okay, here we go. Here we go. He's smiling and he's dancing and he's shaking the hips and she's like, "Rrr." And this is why I got burned out on Batman. Look, he's having fun. He's rocking it. He knows he's sexy. He's sexy and he knows it. But who appears to be having more fun here? Like, if you didn't know the context, this would seem kind of sexual assaulty. She does not consent. She is having none of the funs. He is having all of the funs. He appears confident. She appears meh. And it really shows that the expectations for male tough guys are very constraining. Like, look, Batman could never do that. Well, Spider-Man could. Now it's making you think about Spider-Man in a whole new way, isn't it? But that's sort of the point, right? Like, Batman is having fun. And that's why it's funny. Because Batman never has fun. But then again, it's Batman. I don't want to read too much into it in a macro context because the positive space in any Batman story is the villains. If you look at the Joker, the Riddler, even Catwoman, though Catwoman isn't a villain, she's an anti-hero. But the villains tend to be very brightly colored. They're positive space. And Batman is negative space. He's all gloomy Gus. And that's something specific to Batman. But also with Catwoman, you can't just see Catwoman as feminine gender performance because there is that furry element there, right? I mean, it's not just that she acts like a woman. She acts like a cat. And I know something from cats. Exhibit A. Here's Zelda. Now, Zelda is slinky and graceful. Yes. And she looks kind of more like Selena did in that clip there. But they make Catwoman move like a cat. Not just like a person. A cat. So I think Kyle Orland and company need to get more of their furry on. Right, Zelda? Because claiming that it's male gaze is an insult to cats. They're applying human gaze to you, aren't they? Yes, you want none of this, right? What is this nonsense overthinking? Right, honey? Isn't she cute? Isn't she pretty? Princess Zelda? There we go. What do you think about it, Zelly Belly? Eh? You just want to go back to your sleep, eh? But yeah, kitties are slinky and graceful and delicate and have strong opinions. And they're going to do whatever they want no matter what you want them to do. Right, Zelda? You were doing that earlier. Yeah, okay, see? She wants to go. There we go. So, that has more to do with the Catwoman performance than the fact that she is a woman. You look at other Batman characters like Talia al Ghul, or even someone like Silver St. Cloud, or Batgirl, they perform very different. To claim that Catwoman is male gaze neglects the thing that makes her uniquely a character, an individual, instead of a representative of womanhood. And ironically, that's sexist. If you don't treat women like individuals, if all women are just avatars of womanhood, if they are defined more by their class than them as an individual, that is sexist thinking. You're not allowing a woman to be anything but some kind of conformist cog in a much larger machine. That's not good, okay? And this is why I do these videos. I don't want, first of all, people who care very much about gender equality and depictions of men and women in media to think that these are the right answers, okay? They're not. When you actually break down and when you actually look at end goals, which is treating people like people instead of things. Now, in a video game, they are all just objects, so grain of salt there. But assuming that Batman and Catwoman are real people here, to reduce Catwoman strictly to her gender and include nothing else about her is a form of sexism. Why you're forcing her to conform to things involving her gender instead of accepting her as an individual with her own ideas and goals and things like that. But then we also have to look at what this says about depictions of masculinity too, that people were so offended. People went, he's hypersexualized. And I'm like, he looks like every Batman cosplayer at Halloween at a gay bar that I've ever seen. Don't ask why I've seen a lot of Batman cosplayers at gay bars on Halloween. It's a very long story. Going back to when I was maybe too young to be legally in those clubs. But like, that's the thing. You've got men who shrug off heteronormativity and therefore shrug off gender conformity alongside that heteronormativity, behaving exactly like Batman behaves in that clip. And that was the whole thing that Judith Butler recognized, that her theories, I believe Judith is a they now. I'm not sure. I think they go by they now. Oh, Zelda's back. Hi, Zelda. You know, Judith Butler observed drag performers, drag queens, and then there are drag kings, but it's not as big a phenomenon. There are reasons for that. More on that in a bit. And Butler observed that, you know, drag was a cartoon of femininity, a hyper feminine performance, not hypersexualized performance, hyper feminine performance. And that was where Butler got the whole idea of gender as a performance. These performers did not stop being male when they weren't in drag. The difference between a trans person and a drag queen or king is that drag is a performance, trans is an identity. Okay, so these drag performers didn't stop identifying as male when they weren't in character. This is why personas and names are so important in drag. And so it was something you do. Gender is something you act on. It is a series of gestures, hair, clothes, you know, what shoes you wear, how you move, how you respond to something, you know, oh my, that whole thing. And that's more on the money, I think, than somebody determining what you are based on looking. There's something to be said for cinematic analysis and gaze theory. But I really believe more strongly that gender is a series of performances. And yes, well, camera angles and things like that can all simulate an audience. In this day and age, it is very heteronormative to believe that that audience is male just because it's focusing on female body parts. Obviously, you know, gay people are perceived as a minority of the population, but they still exist. Now, some people claim that, oh, what gay men want and what gay women want is different, and you know, what pansexual people want is different than what, you know, straight people want. That's not always the case. You know, when I was streaming Death Stranding, there were 2 women in my Twitch chat who kept wanting Norman Reedish shower scenes, right? And they were going, woohoo! You know, they were acting just like dudes used to act before that was not allowed. And I try to be looser about all of that in my Twitch chats, because I think everybody should be able to behave the same. And as long as everybody's having fun and nobody starts treating somebody like they don't respect them, personally, I am totally okay with that. Sex and sexuality are part of the human condition. LGBTQ plus people spent a lot of time fighting to be able to openly express their sexuality and have it accepted. Straightforward, not in some kind of code. And I think it does them a disservice to claim that kind of a slinky cat-like feminine performance is somehow sexual. It's somehow sexist. Because not only does it constrict acceptable and appropriate behavior for women, which is extra problematic when it's a guy telling women how we're allowed to behave. Kyle Orland, I'm looking at you. But also, it's horrendously heteronormative. It is forcing men and women to behave in certain ways based on perceived sexual orientation. And it is creating a really oppressive gender binary that I don't think serves anybody. I think if you asked a lot of women were being honest. I mean, I know why. When I first saw that clip, if you check my Twitter feed, the first thing I said was, I like Batman better this way. Here it is. I actually tweeted it twice. I was so excited by this. I thought this was just so much fun, which I discovered put me at odds with pretty much every other gender analyst under the sun. But here we go. See? Oh my God, I missed this when it happened. So funny. I think I like Batman better this way, frankly. And then there's a picture of Momo. And then I said, proof positive that feminine gender performance is way more fun. That's how I took the whole thing. And part of that is because I'm comfortable with myself. Part of this is I actually spend a lot of time understanding this and thinking about this and thinking, what are the outcomes we want, right? If you want to control people through media criticism and media analysis and make everyone behave in ways that are comfortable to you, by all means, criticize feminized gender performances, hyper feminine gender performances, especially when it's something based on cats, right? That's coming up in a movie soon, people. You're all going to get triggered with the cats. Jellicles doing, like, I've seen Cats a lot. But if you're actually interested in people being most comfortable in their own skin and people feeling like they have the social license to perform in the way that feels most comfortable and most natural to them without a lot of negative consequences, we have to support the entire spectrum of gender performance and gendered performances. And that means, like, if you look at that, you see a lot of, gay community cabaret performers and things like that behaving that way. So if it's okay for a man to do, if it's not considered shameful for a man to do, then it shouldn't be shameful for a woman to do. Wait a second. And this is where we get to the root of it. And this is where I actually have a real issue. I think this sort of thinking is harmful on many fronts. And that's because when people go, oh my God, this is the male gaze and stuff like that, not only does it demean feminized behaviors and therefore demean femininity, it also tells men that doing things that appear or are judged as feminine is shameful. And not only does that discourage men from expressing a wider spectrum of emotions, but in the long term, it continues to prop up this idea of masculine characteristics good, feminine characteristics less good. Because let's face it, that Batman costume, that's plenty of hypermasculinity and in some ways male hypersexuality in its own way. All those muscles and very chiseled and ideal masculinity and all the, the glowering, that's its own form of gendered. And to an extent, I mean, let's face it, there's a reason that superheroes run around in clingy underwear, and Batman wears body armor that's designed to simulate clingy underwear. There's no reason Batman's body armor has to look like it has abs. That suit is simulating a naked, Batman, except for the cape. Because let's face it, no. Nobody gets near Batman's butt. No. And that's the issue with the whole heteronormative idea of this. And that's why I think that video struck such a nerve. I think women should be able to behave cartoonishly feminine, especially when you're impersonating a cat. Right, Zelda? Right. But I also think that men should not be shamed, and there shouldn't be a big deal made out of this precisely because of, the guys who look at this and go, that looks like a lot of fun. When they see people freaking out, it's going to trigger feelings of shame in men as well as in women, because let's face it, the whole criticism here is that, Catwoman's acting like a slut. That's what hypersexualized is code for. Now, there are exceptions to that, okay? Children should not be hypersexualized. That's where I first saw this idea of hypersexuality come into it, was that too much stuff aimed at kids was a little too sexy for a lot of people's comfort. I know I started feeling uncomfortable with it when the whole Spice Girls phenomenon was a thing, and girls were wearing very, very short shorts, like those Jerry Halliwell sequin underwear shorts. I started getting a little concerned about that not because I think sexuality is dirty, and not because I'm terrified that little girls are going to get pregnant. It's because I think that you only have one shot at being a kid. And we shouldn't downplay the amazingness that is childhood. I don't think people should be rushed into adulthood that way, boys and girls. It always makes me sad when kids hit that phase where it's like, that's stupid, that's a kid thing, I don't want to do that anymore. Nobody can see anyway but sort of backward. We don't know what it's like to be older than we are. We can remember what it was like to be younger, but we don't know what it was like to be older. And I think that in some ways we need to show kids more respect by letting them be kids longer and having enough quality content for kids that they don't get bored by the time they're about 12 or 13. And there's nothing for that age. And so they have to seek out adult stuff and they start absorbing messages that they don't necessarily process and understand in a healthy way. I think that's really important. But once someone is an adult, no one has the right to say they are hypersexualized. Obviously, there are sometimes where it's perhaps not appropriate, but even then, that's more about comfort than morals, right? Like, I used to say, the Beelzebub blind, I wouldn't dress this way in a church, but I don't go to church for obvious reasons. But more and more I have seen churches be more open to people dressing any way they want because they want people to come. They want people to show up. And one person pointed out, there's a guy in a loincloth hanging from the wall. What does it matter how anybody else dresses? And I'm like, fair point. Never thought about crucified Jesus that way. Can't unsee. But even things like courtrooms where women are censured for dressing too revealing. I think that's maybe people just knowing that it's power, and no, you can't distract the male judge or male opposing counsel by wearing something with plunging cleavage, especially, the judge. You can see like right down that. I think that would actually be a pretty awesome tactic if you were allowed to do it. But again, these are comfort considerations. These are social norm considerations. These are not moral considerations. And it's extremely important to keep that in mind. And that's why I do videos like this, to keep things chill and to have fun with this. But also, I think a lot of people, when they see the negativity surrounding things like this come out, they start having reactions they don't understand. And I think some of those reactions are precisely because they are somewhat gender non-conforming, and these brutal enforcement of gendered norms, or trying to erase the feminine performance from our existence because it somehow makes them horrendously uncomfortable. That makes people uncomfortable because they think it's beautiful and they think it's desirable. And there's something about that sort of gendered performance that affirms them. It's not always, oh, I'd like to hit that. It's, this makes me comforted. This is soothing somehow. It's not always a predatory sexual urge. It can sometimes be something, a lot of the time, it's something much gentler. And if somebody has that predatory urge instead of that gentler urge, that kind of this comforts me urge, that has more to do with the person. That indicates a person has serious problems, as opposed to the content being a problem. And I'll leave it there. I don't want to sing again because that was a lot of singing, but Patreon. There we go. Hope you like the song. Let me know about the 12 Days of Christmas thing. Thanks for watching. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, as well as Twitch. Twitch is tomorrow. We get BB back tomorrow on Death Stranding. Thanks for watching.